Hello and welcome. Today I'm going to be trying to do something a little bit different because I'm a writer and it's much easier for me to talk about topics through writing than it is for me to speak the words. My brain just works better that way. And so I've written today's video out on paper and I'm basically just going to read it like a story, maybe add some things here and there. But let's get into it. So the main message I've been trying to make with my recent videos is that we need to stop fighting. We need to come together and be more understanding of one another. That right there is the core of my message with my most recent videos. That is what I really want people to be taking out of them more than anything. So far, all of my videos have been directed towards everyone. No matter what you identify as, no matter what race you are, just any human being on the planet. Today's video is going to have a specific audience. Now, you don't have to be transgender in order for this video to help you, to enlighten you. It's more so just going deeper into my personal experience. But I'm specifically targeting people who are transgender because this is my experience with being transgender. This is my experience with what I went through when I was identifying as someone who was FTM. I'm getting it backwards, aren't I? Sorry. Yes, FTM. Female to male. I don't know why, but saying the words makes sense to me, but the F and M it just scrambles my brain. Okay. So I want to start off by saying I get it if you're angry or hurt by my videos. I get it if you think I'm delusional. The world we live in would be a much better place if I was delusional. If I was the only person who had these views and these opinions. Everyone once thought that transgender was insanity, that people cutting off their genitals and doing all these things was crazy. And now you, who was identifying as transgender, think I'm crazy for thinking that you're being manipulated. Because it's something that stretches your thinking. It's something that goes against your deepest core belief. And it hurts. It hurt me. It hurt me to see these things. It hurt me to face this truth of mine. And I want to share my video or my story in this video so that I can express what I went through, so that you can understand what transgender is. I was 17 years old when I first became interested in learning what transgender was. There had been some people at my school I had seen before that. There had been talks of people here and there. I didn't really know much about it, and I didn't really have an opinion on it because I knew so little about it. So I finally decided one day to do some research. And I remember finding a video of an FTM individual, so exactly same transition as I was going through, named Calvin. And upon hearing this person's story, I found every single bit of it relatable. Everything. Every sort of pain, every sort of suffering, every sort of explanation, it seemed to just click for me. It seemed to fit so well. And to go deeper into that, It was the discomfort of my body, specifically the things about it that were female. The never fitting in with other girls, always feeling like an outcast, from my cousins to the girls at my school to going to events, even being at a rec center. I always felt like I was different. I was an outcast. I didn't fit in with them for some reason. Always knowing that I was just somehow not the same as these girls. I couldn't be interested in the same things as them. I didn't understand all these things that they all seemed to understand just fine. It was like for some reason I was out of that group. I felt ostracized. And I mean, since I was in kindergarten, my earliest memory of myself sitting next to a trash can watching the other kids play, not understanding why I wasn't there with them, why I was different. I'd wear baggy shirts and try to hide my breasts when I was in high school. I was really uncomfortable with people staring at them, really uncomfortable with just knowing that they were there. I was extremely uncomfortable with them. And not just my breasts, I mean my thighs. I was uncomfortable the moment I started going through female puberty. It felt like my body was just like transforming into this horrific alien. My thighs were way too big because now they suddenly had a little curve on the side of them. The place between my legs, I had so much discomfort with that, I didn't want to talk about it. My friends could talk about stuff like that, but I just couldn't. I didn't want to, and it made me really uncomfortable. And I'd always wanted broad shoulders, always wanted to be taller, have bigger muscles, and I wanted to play with the boys when I was growing up. I remember having these two wonderful friends, and I liked them, but I always wanted to go play tag with all the boys. I thought it looked like so much fun, and I wanted to go hang out with them. And eventually, I started doing it. I had an older brother, and I would wear his hand-me-downs. I even tried to get my mom to buy me boys' clothes at the store, and she basically told me, "You can't wear boys' clothes, you have female hips." Even though she would have me wearing my brother's hand-me-downs, which were boy pants. But no, I couldn't have boy pants specifically bought for me. And I wanted to be treated like the boys. I wanted to feel powerful, to feel strong, to feel like I could go play Nerf gun wars. I could wear boys' pants. I wanted to just fit in with them, and I never wanted to grow breasts. It terrified me as a child. I wanted nothing to do with being female. Nothing. Even as a child, I was extremely, extremely uncomfortable with it. And so, watching that person's video, it was like, this all made so much sense. Other people were going through this. I wasn't alone. I wasn't the only weird kid. I wasn't the only one who seemed like I was a boy in a girl's body. Right? And at age 17, almost 18, what did I do about that? Well, first, I just started... to be honest, I was already dressing pretty masculine, so I didn't really change my wardrobe that much. And I'd already had short hair, so I didn't really do anything different to my hair either. I was already very masculine looking. But now I was telling people that I wanted to be called a boy, telling them that I wanted to be referred to as a man. And I eventually went to a therapist, and I started talking to them. They were a non-binary therapist. So they were transgender themselves. And so they went through all the procedures, they went through their book, they checked off all my symptoms and everything, and they were like, okay, yeah, I'll write you a letter for um, for the injections, the testosterone. Because at the time I was convinced that that's what I needed to do. This was going to make me feel so much better. This was going to make me feel like I was finally in my own body, make me feel like I was finally in my own skin. And so at my 18th birthday, that's when I took my first testosterone injection. And the doctor did this one for me. And everything seemed great. Everything seemed fine. I remember going to bed that night and waking up backwards in my bed in the morning for the first time since I was a child. And I had this like sense of happiness, this sense of peace. I felt complete, I felt fine. I continued to feel that way for 4 years. It was like my only battle was just convincing people that this is who I am. That was the battle, was just facing the world of people who want to discomfort me, who want to call me things that I'm not. Was to basically prove to the world that this is real, that this is who I am, and I need to be respected. And transgender people absolutely need to be respected. At the end of the day, they are people. That's the number one thing I always say to people who are not transgender, is people who are transgender are people. You don't have to agree with what they're doing, but you do need to understand that that's a human being, and you should treat them like a human being. They're not going around stabbing babies. Treat them like a human. Okay. So I was convinced that these injections were basically like an antidepressant. If I didn't take them, I would get depressed and I would get sad and I would feel like I wasn't myself again. But if I take the injections, I feel complete, I feel fine, I feel myself. And eventually I found myself in my first serious relationship. I was moved out of my parents, living in my own apartment that I was paying for myself, working a full-time job, because now I have more energy and slightly bigger muscle mass. Now I can get a more masculine job and I can work harder. Still not the same as someone who's male. Again, I'm 5 feet tall. For starters, that's one thing. But anyways, so I'm working my job, dating my boyfriend, and I was so scared of pregnancy throughout my entire adolescence that even on top of testosterone, I still was using an IUD. I wanted there to be no risk of me getting pregnant, didn't want anything to do with it, until eventually this copper IUD that I was using was causing me so much pain, so much agony, it just felt like wrong. I don't know how else to describe that. It felt like there's this foreign object in my body. I need it out. I need it out right now. I don't want it there. Like, I cannot forget about it. It just kept making my cramps go like this intense pain feeling. And so as much as I was afraid of getting pregnant, I was like, you know what? Me and my partner do kind of want kids. We had talked about it. And I can't have this thing inside of me anymore. And so I decided that if I get pregnant, then that's that. I'm not willing to use hormonal birth control. And me and my partner weren't really able to use condoms. So it was like, I didn't know what the solution would be, but I knew I couldn't keep living the way I was. So I got it removed. And that's when I had my first pregnancy scare. I started feeling really weird, and I was just convinced that I was pregnant. I was convinced that this strange feeling within me must be that I'm pregnant. If I'm feeling weird or different and I don't know why, then that must be why. Because that had been what was on my mind at the time. And I got to a lot of thinking, and I realized if I am pregnant, I have to go through with it. I never shame people for having abortions, but I just know personally I'm unable to do that. Like, the maternal instinct in me will not allow me to get an abortion. And it will not allow me to do anything to harm that child. I have a very strong maternal instinct, and I cannot ignore that. I cannot bypass it. And so I just started leaning myself off of the testosterone. I was like, you know what, if I get depressed, I can always start taking it again. If I can't handle it, I can start taking it and go from there and see what it is that I will have to do. But for now, that's what I'm going to do. I leaned myself off of it, and immediately I start feeling different. Like, the number one thing I noticed was my emotional state. I went from being more robotic, more right-brained, logical thinking, hard to cry. Literally, it was hard for me to cry when I was on testosterone. But once I stopped taking it, it was like my emotions just came flooding back. I was feeling everything. Happiness, sadness, anger, love. It was like everything I'd been suppressing and shoving down just came to light. Because that is what testosterone does. It quite literally does that to you. Women are by nature more emotional because of our hormones. Our hormones play a huge role in our emotional state. Same thing with the smell of your pee. Men have stronger smelling pee because of testosterone. There's a lot of things that are simply just caused by this one hormone that we don't even think about. Like the fact that testosterone makes your skin oilier and it makes your skin thicker. My skin got softer like immediately after I stopped taking testosterone. My body fat went back to curves instead of just stick. And part of me couldn't deny that, like, I really didn't like how my hips would stick out when I was on testosterone. You know, I still had female hips, even though my body fat had distributed like a male's. And the bone of my hip would just poke out so much that it made me feel anorexic. And because I'd had a past of starving myself, it did make me feel uncomfortable. And so having like my fat back where it was supposed to be, it did alleviate that. But did I feel better or worse overall? Not really. My body and my view of it had nothing to do with my body, had nothing to do with who I am on the inside. It had to do with my emotional state. It had to do with my perception of myself. It had to do with my trauma. And people think that gender dysphoria, dysphoria with your body, discomfort with it, discomfort with how you're socially treated, comes from being born in the wrong body. That is what the belief that transgender people have. And that is what we're told. But I have learned through my journey that that is not the case. All of your dysphoria with your body, with being referred to as a certain gender, all of that discomfort is coming from somewhere. There is something that triggered that. And just because you don't remember it, just because you haven't faced it yet, doesn't mean it's not there. And trust me, I did not want to admit that. There's a reason why it took me years to even admit that I had trauma, let alone even face it. I still have not fully faced that trauma. And for people who believe in past lives, you can have trauma from past lives. Even if you don't remember experiencing something in this life, you can have trauma that has carried on from another life. You can have trauma from when you were really young and you don't remember. You can have trauma and deal with it in a way that's kind of like people with multiple personality disorder, dissociative disorder, I think they call it now. But it doesn't mean you have to have multiple personality disorders in order to be blocking emotions, to be blocking memories from yourself. We all handle trauma in different ways. And for me, I shoved mine so deep down that I didn't know it was there. Emotionally, things would come up and I didn't know where they were coming from. But yeah, it's pretty clear to me now where that was coming from. I've had frequent moments where it's pretty clear what happened to me. I don't have to remember to know what happened to me. The body doesn't forget the trauma that we go through. And again, that is what's causing the discomfort in the body. You are uncomfortable with that physical body because something physically happened to your body that was traumatic. All right. Now, how do I know that I wasn't just a fluke? How do I know that I just wasn't transgender, that I just wasn't a part of this community, that I wasn't one of these people, that I wasn't just some special case? Well, there are lots of people like me. First of all, again, I am not the only one who believes these things. I am not the only one who is seeing this light. But going even deeper into that, does it make sense? Is it possible? And why would it happen? See, who is the internal person? That's what really, really helped me come out of this. Was I started meditating. I started going within myself. When you have an internal journey that isn't just ego-based, that isn't just based on the mind, when you actually dive deeper into who you are as a person. Read Eckhart Tolle's book, The Power of Now. Go to a Buddhist temple and start meditating, even if you don't believe in Buddhism. Just whatever you can do to go through your own personal inner journey and discover that true essence, that true self. It doesn't have an identity. When we die and leave our body, we are no longer a sister. We are no longer a firefighter. We are no longer a writer. We are not our body. Our body is a vessel. Hence why when we die, we leave our body behind. It is temporary, but we are permanent. And that spirit, that soul, that vessel that is inhabiting the body that you live through, live in, however you want to describe it, it doesn't have a gender. It doesn't associate with a gender. And that's why I am so sure of this, is because I have discovered true life essence. I have seen myself. I have talked to many, many other people who have been through this. I have traveled around the country. I've traveled outside of the country. I've talked to people from all kinds of religions, all kinds of different backgrounds, different races, different sexes, different gender identities. And I'm telling you right now, every single one of them that had that core belief of God or the Buddha or the higher self, they're all about the same thing. They're all the same thing, just a different word for it. The higher self, the true self, the spirit that you are, is formless. It's energy. It does not have an identity. The mind is what has an identity. We're triad beings. We have a body, we have a mind, and we are the spirit living within the body, living through the body, experiencing life, perceiving it. And the mind can be changed. If you feel uncomfortable with something, you can change your level of discomfort with that thing. And that is the saddest thing about being told you're transgender, is you're told that, like, you're just messed up. You can't be fixed. You were just born broken, pretty much. And that's not right. That's not okay. You are perfect as you are. Your body is perfect as it is. Unless you have some sort of serious health condition that you need to be looking after, your body is perfect. You don't need that nose job. You don't need a boob job. You don't need to remove your genitals. You don't need to take synthetic hormones to make your body look different. You need to look at your body different. You can change your inner world. You can change your view of yourself. It may seem impossible. You may have been told it's not possible. You may be completely convinced that it is not possible, but I guarantee you it is. I have done it. I was just as transgender, just as convinced as every other person who thinks they're transgender. And that's why I'm the one speaking about this. That's why I'm going through this. I'm here to tell you that that's not the end of the road. That is not the end of this story. You can love your body. And you are worthy of love. At the end of the day, love yourself. Know that you are worthy of love, and know that nothing will ever change that. Be the best person you can be, and be proud of that person. No matter what you have gone through, no matter what you are going through, you are enough. You don't need to change anything. Even if you perceive yourself as not being perfect, as not being enough, it's okay.